Welcome to your weekly airplane news update. This is the week of February 28, 2022. We got 4 stories this week. The first one is unfortunately possibly a bad news. The Antonov AN225, which you've probably seen in the news quite a bit this week, may have been destroyed in Ukraine. We have PG&E, which was cited for using a helicopter that had saw blades on it. I know this sounds kind of weird, but we'll talk about more of that. The FAA is looking at eliminating the lead in the GA emissions for aircraft. We'll talk about that as well, because that's going to have some pretty important implications, I think. And then a boy somewhere in Brazil sneaked out and then got onto an airplane and then traveled 1,500 miles all by himself, which is, again, a real interesting story. So let's get to it. All right, the first news comes from Ukraine, and I want to say anything that we're going to talk about here about the invasion of Ukraine right now obviously is pale in comparison to everything that's happened to people and their families and everything in Ukraine. But obviously this is news for aviation, so we have to talk about aviation. There are reports of the AN225 Mryia, which has potentially been destroyed in an airport in Ukraine. This is, if you've never seen that airplane, this is the what's known as the largest aircraft in the world. It's not necessarily the largest ever, but it's a massive, massive aircraft, very popular. It's been used for a lot of missions, for good missions across the world. And there's been conflicting information for the last week, including the fact that it's been completely destroyed by a missile attack. And then recently, last couple of days, there was information saying that maybe it hasn't been either fully destroyed, or maybe it's just partially destroyed or partially impaired, or we don't really know exactly for sure. But there were initially images from satellite that showed that only the tail of the aircraft is showing in that image on the satellite, which shows that maybe it's not completely gone. So I think until we have final decision, it's hard to make a conclusion, but I think it would be pretty sad for the aviation community if anything had happened. This is the only aircraft in the world that is built of that size, of that model. It used actually to fly close to my office in Melbourne in Florida. We used to have it on a regular basis, and I was lucky enough to see that take off a couple times, and it's extremely impressive. So we hope that that's not the case. Okay, the next story this week is PG&E that is cited by California, by Cal Fire, for deploying a Heli-saw over a park. Now, if you don't know what a Heli-saw is, it uses 30-inch blades to trim branches in and around power lines to prevent wildfires. Now, on paper, this is a good thing, except this time they were trimming in a public park, and then Cal Fire said that they were actually branches that could have been as big as 8 inches in diameter that fell from an altitude of as high as 150 feet. So luckily nobody was injured, but obviously not the kind of thing that you want to do in a public park when that happens. All right, next story this week is also kind of one with a lot of implications. The FAA is looking to eliminate lead emissions. This is something that they released last week, talking about how they want to do this by 2024. The initiative has been dubbed EAGLE. Now, I want to know how much time they spend coming up with that thing. So it's Eliminate Aviation Gasoline Lead Emissions. And that includes a lot of different things, such as unleaded fuel infrastructure. So they want to redo this. So they're studying how they can do it. Commercial viability, doing some research, and then doing some policies around how this is going to happen. So you can find more information. The FAA has released some an update, and then you can see what they're planning on doing. Let us know in the comments what you think about this. I think this is going to have some implication into the cost of training, something that I've been watching closely over the years. Flying is expensive. This is not going to help, I guarantee you. Next thing this week is a story coming out of Brazil. A 9-year-old boy was reported missing on Saturday by the mother, and the search revealed that the boy had actually snuck out and traveled to a nearby airport where he boarded the airplane without a ticket. The boy was able to travel from Manaus to, and I can't pronounce that word, so you'll put it down in the comments. That was approximately 1,677 miles away. The boy reportedly said that he wanted to go visit family that was located in that area. So kudos to that boy for doing this safely. Kind of interesting that somebody was able to get on board and travel all that far. This is kind of a reverse Home Alone, right? I guess in this case. All right. The last thing I want to finish with, I didn't mention that in the intro credits, but PSI, the testing center for the FAA, has been having troubles with their testing. And, well, I think it's completely unacceptable, quite frankly. What's happened is that students have reported that there's a major delay in taking the test. Not a delay in getting it scheduled, but when the students show up and they start clicking, it takes up to, some of the students said, 60 to 90 seconds to load up to the next question, which unfortunately leads to students running out of time to take the exam within the allotted amount of time that PSI or the FAA gives them. Like I said, this is completely unacceptable. The FAA has oversight of PSI doing this. So please, 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 if this happened to you, I want you to report it, one, to PSI. We're going to put a link down in the description. Tell them it's unacceptable. If this happened to you, I believe that you should not be charged for the service that PSI did not provide. Also, make sure that you tell the FAA, the testing branch, they are in charge of overseeing PSI. PSI has a monopoly at the moment on testing, which again, I don't think this is also a good position for us as customers. So I'm going to put a link down in the description so you can send an email to the FAA and tell them to take action so that this is fixed, so that you don't have to have additional stress when you take your exam. Again, completely unacceptable. So at the end of all this, please send me an email as well. I'm trying to compile that information. I also want to make an email to the FAA and to PSI to let them know the same thing that you're going to let them know. But I want to send the name and of everyone who was involved in this and has been affected. So that's it. That's all I have for you this week. As always, like, subscribe, leave your comments in the comment section, and then I'll see you guys next week.